All right, what's going on, guys? Graham Romina here with WhatCulture.com. And ahead of Psych 3, this is Gus, dropping this Thursday as we speak right now on November 18th on Peacock. We're talking to Henry Spencer himself, Corbin Bernsen. Corbin, how you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
And we're going into this movie on Thursday, and you just told me right off the air before we started recording here. This is the only interview you're doing talking about Psych, and obviously this is the third one we've gotten, the third movie in the last couple of years. Is it cool going back to the Psych universe and whatnot?
It is, but I should explain it's not because I didn't want to do other talking about it, but I just work prohibited me doing it. So anyway, this is an interesting series experience. I've been thinking a lot lately. As you get a little bit older, you think of all the things you've done, and there's LA Law and movies, different things. It's Psych really holds this unique space in the whole journey, if you will, and I think we all feel this way, the cast, and even though we've done other things and are doing other things and going to be doing other things, it's always going to be this kind of special place, and it's kind of you can't really describe what it is. You can't. It works. The people like each other. The material's good. The show's good. The fan base enjoys it, and it just kind of works.
Yeah, and especially compared to everything else you've done over the course of your career, like you said, a lot of films, movies, TV shows, everything else. Is this the longest recurring role that you've had on a show? I mean, obviously with the movies, it's every couple of years now, but the original run of Psych was like 8 years or something like that. So
yeah, but LA Law was the same. I think we did actually more episodes of LA Law because we did 8 years of 22 and 23 episodes, and Psych was anywhere from teens to 20. I think we never did 20 of Psych. So LA Law was actually longer haul.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, I mean, it's been crazy though, because the original show lasted 8 years, but this year with the movie, it works out perfectly. The movie dropping this year, 15 years from when the show first started in the summer of 2006. Is that crazy to hear for you?
Yeah, well, it's crazy because I start putting everything in. I'm 67. That means I'll be 80. And then, but believe me, now to when we started this thing was, warning anybody who's younger, it goes real fast. Make every moment count. I guess it's even with the pandemic and everything is just like sped up so much. It's just amazing to me. It's amazing to me here that LA Law was 35 years ago.
Oh, it's crazy.
I know it's crazy what happens in life, especially when you put it in context. You have your life, your family, and your children, and all those things you go through. But then you have this other life, this kind of narrative that's your work over the years, and you got LA Law. I actually look at things and I'm like, those are the LA Law years. Those are the Psych years. That's the in-between in Major League and a couple movies. And it's interesting that you put it in those perspectives, but I've been really, really lucky to have two of them. And hey, I may have more luck yet. We're getting ready to do a pilot for a new LA Law at the beginning of the year. So who knows? Yeah,
I saw that. No, it's so cool. It's so cool, Corbin, that you're still doing all these projects and still killing it. Like you said, you're in the middle of production for another project right now, and going back to LA Law, going back to Psych, and kind of reprising these roles, which is awesome. And for you kind of mentioned earlier, kind of a message to like the younger fans. I'm 26, so I've been watching Psych since I was 11, 12 years old. I really grew up on the show. Is it awesome for you to know that you kind of connected with a lot of generations of people from your time on LA Law, from Psych, and I mean now kids are watching your work without even knowing your time on LA Law. Like it's kind of weird to think about.
Let me tell you something, man. That's really cool. I have 4 sons that are 23 to 32. So you're in that range there, and to be able to just know that you've connected continuously, that's the age you're at is a really critical time of creation and things and viewpoints and all that stuff. And again, I would urge anybody who's in your age group, this is the time you really start putting your stamp down. And because after that it goes in and you're in the middle of it, and the next thing you know, you're out the other side. You're where I am, and you're looking back in the rear view a little bit. But for me to be able to be in touch with that base, let's call it 18 to 40 even, if you want to stretch it out even further. It's great because there's just so much creativity there and so many people that are, sort of dictating what's to come, if you will, and I like being a part of it. It makes me not feel necessarily just stuck in my generation. And even when it comes to my writing or acting or style of acting or anything I do, I'm not stuck in some pattern that was. I still feel I get to be a part of what's relevant, and that's kind of invigorating, if you will. And I think important for an artist, but that's me being BSE kind of like. It's important for an artist. Who cares, Corbin?
No, but it's
but
still
it is great to be in touch, man. It is great.
No, it's super cool. And especially with, a show like this, and it's coming back every couple of years now. And you mentioned earlier having kids of your own. How much of the Henry Spencer character is you as a father? And I mean, the show's been on the air with the movies and whatever for 15 years. So how much of those like father-son lessons are you incorporating into the Henry Spencer character with you, either with you and your own father or you and your sons, with you and Sean on TV?
Yeah, me and my own father would be really different. That was a different kind of. He was a lovely man. I love him. A lot of people moan and complain about him, but my mother, not the least of which. But there were a lot of great faults, and I look at him as a different value in my life than what Henry is to Sean or I am to my own kids. But as related to my own kids, when I did the audition for that show, and I did audition for it at the beginning, there was a couple guys in the waiting room. I went, I think they're probably better. They look like dads. They look like, and I always felt a little bit, I don't know, off. And even when I got it, you look at, James, and it's like, am I old enough to be his dad? Really? But there was something I did bring to it that may be read, and I think it's what people enjoy, and I hear the fans enjoy, and I think the writers enjoy because they wrote to it, is here's a guy who wants the best for his kid. He's going to try everything he can. And, we tend to want our children to emulate us, do as I do, and that's always been Henry's thing. He wants his son to be a cop. Then you discover along the way, which I've discovered, you think what you want them to be, but the road to it isn't the way you necessarily, think it's going to be. It goes back to what I said a moment ago. Your generations, there's paths that you take that are different from the paths we took. And so Sean, eventually, I mean, at the end of the day, I want Sean to be I want him to be a cop, and I want him to be good, and I want him to be liked, and I want him to be successful. I want him to be happy. What everybody wants for their kid, not always to be a cop, but, and he just, the thing that Henry learns, and what I learned with my kids, is it just isn't, you've got to accept it isn't the road that you picked. You're going from LA to New York. Okay, I want you to go right down the middle of the country. They go, no, I'm going to go south. I'm going to go north. And they end up in New York, and that's all that's really important. Their journey is theirs. And Sean turns out to be a pretty darn good cop. BS and all. All of his psychic abilities and all that. And so I think over the course of time, Henry grew to accept what Sean is, as I do with my children, and not try to keep paving the path for them, but rather inspire them to stay on a path, So I think that's what Henry is. And I think I brought that to the character by default. It's because it's all I know. It's not like some great invention of acting. It was just like, I got it.
Yeah, it's all organic, and we see it in the episodes, and a lot of like the, on the show, and even in the movies now. In this movie, we see a lot of those nuggets of information that you kind of share as a father, and even as a friend, because we see you share a few scenes with Timothy Lassiter, obviously, for the first time. Did you interact with him in the last movie? I don't remember. No,
not much. I haven't. I loved him, and we've talked off camera a lot out of character, but this is the first time we've had anything really, really to do, and I know I've sort of been known to say this is I call the grown-up Psych. It's a little bit. I love this movie. I think more than the first two, actually, because we have each definitely. I mean, it's 15 years later, and it's early on. You say, "How can you keep doing this?" I don't know. Sean's got to grow up, and Henry's got to grow old of him, and but then you do it, and you realize, no, you do it as a grown-up Psych, if you will, and within that context, I got to have a couple of just two wonderful scenes with Tim. relating to the, what he's gone through with his stroke on a personal level, but also acting, and, it's incorporated into the story now. Well, beautifully written in by James and by Steve Franks, who wrote the movie. And I have these wonderful scenes with Tim that are some of the favorite I've ever done. They're simple, but they're filled with history, and they're filled with these characters that everybody knows, that I also know, almost as an audience member. That's Henry and Lassiter having a talk on the porch where, Henry used to sit with Sean, because Lassiter, story-wise, has bought my house. So, yeah, they're really, really wonderful, wonderful time. And getting to spend a few minutes with Tim on that level, on a creative level, and inspired me. And I've told him I've got a couple of even movie play ideas for Tim to do.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. So there's a chance we could see you guys interact beyond the Psych universe as well on screen.
I hope so. Tim's a very special guy. He he has enormous talent, but he had a lot of stuff right at his fingertips that was going in a direction, and then fate hit the way it did. And it's easy for us to say from the outside. I kept saying to him, maybe this is a blessing, Tim. Maybe this is what's going to make you different from everybody else, and not just another guy who's really funny and good and handsome and all that. But maybe I don't mean to be turn lemons into lemonade quite thing, but things happen, and you can find purpose within that. And I think that's essentially what's in our scenes, by the way. But I would also say to Tim, so I see a lot of stuff. I mean, my mind's always whipping up stories and whatnot, and I definitely have some ideas about things that could happen for a guy like Tim that has the confines that he does post-stroke, and the abilities that he still has to be an extraordinary actor and a transmitter of emotion and whatnot.
No, I love the positive outlook, and like you said, we see that a little bit on the movie itself. So I love that it's kind of bleeding off screen as well. It kind of comes from real life inspiration, which is super cool. And as we wind down here, you mentioned earlier, Corbin, that you're working on a project right now. You're in the middle of production. Anything you can share on that front?
I'm doing a season on a Showtime show with Kevin Bacon. It's a lot of these shows now do these kind of one season arcs, called City on a Hill. Very different place, very different character, wound up in some very different problems, but extraordinary acting experience. Having a wonderful time with Kevin, who's just a wonderful actor, and a show that's just very different for me. It's so far afield from Psych and even my faith-based movies and all that. I can't give away too much, but City on a Hill, and it's stretching my everything.
Oh, I look forward to it. Do you know if there's any initial release date, like at some point next year?
No, it's season 3 of City on a Hill, so it's on Showtime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you just keep track of that, but it's a interesting one. We'll leave it at that. I don't really get to walk away from the character without him, jumping in my backpack as I leave the studio each night.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, I mean, you're involved with so much stuff, Corbin. It's cool to see over the course of your career. I mean, you look at your filmography, it's a lot of awesome projects and a lot of stuff that people would know. Like you mentioned, Major League. My dad and brother grew up on that movie, so they know you from that. Right. I know you from Psych, among many other projects. If someone was to stop you in public, is there any one role that people know you for? They're like, hey, that's so-and-so from so-and-so. Anything one or not really? It's
generational, man, because if it's your generation, it's Psych. If it's your dad's generation, it's Major League or LA Law. And I could, if I happen to be near a church, it's my faith-based movies, so, or if I'm at a horror convention, it's The Dentist. It really, I think, I think in the end, not in the end, but I'm not near the end, but I'm one of those guys who've just done a lot of different things in different areas and different mediums, television, soap operas. My mother was on. I'm also known in that world because my mom was on The Young and the Restless, and I did General Hospital in the middle of all this stuff. I mean, this is after LA Law and right before Psych. I mean, I did a year people didn't even know on General Hospital because I just wanted to stay in the game and stay fresh.
Yeah.
Kind of honor my mother in a way, you know.
That's awesome.
No, I think people, I'm just happy if they get half of my name right. Hey, dude, you, dude. Yeah,
oh, that's so fun. No, that's fantastic. And last question for you, Corbin. You dropped a lot of awesome advice here, and while we've been speaking, any other great advice for someone like me that's again, I'm in the middle of my 20s right now, doing stuff like this, talking to you. This has been an awesome experience. Any other great advice you can give to someone like me and anyone else listening or reading?
Well, two things that's very important in what I said is that it's this is the time. This is you've had. I'm going to say something kind of not morose. I don't know the word. A lot of rock and roll stars die at 27, right? Mm-hmm. You've heard the 27 clubs of Janis Joplin, and Jimi Hendrix, all that. Mm-hmm. I keep wondering, like, is that a common thing? What's with 27? And there is a period where you leave. Not what is the quote? Your childish things behind. And you start to move into where you want to go and what you want to do. And I just took a walk with my son who's 23, and I said, what do you want? What do you really, really want? So you start to move into that in the age you're in right now. And the reason I bring up the 27 Club is I think a lot of people won't throw away the years before, and in the case of a lot of people I talked about, that's where drug overdoses, Amy Winehouse, all of them, 27 Club. It's just like the fame and the potential are so strong that they can't give up the past part that holds them back. And I think that's what happens with the 27 Club. Totally different subject. Sorry, but my point being, you're in this moment of this is where it happens. This is where you really got to plant the seeds. You don't have to grow the garden. You don't have to mow the field. You don't have to plant the seeds. What do I want? What do I really, really want? Put those seeds in the ground. And it doesn't have to be one thing. And then the second part of this is what's extraordinary for your generation is however you want to look at the pandemic or going back to everything we've gone through, HIV, pandemic, everything the society seems to have done, your Vietnams, if it were, your World War IIs, that other generations have been through. There is a time right now, there is an opportunity. The world is changing. Mm-hmm. It really, really is. We know collectively we can't be what we were environmentally, socially. I mean, look at it, all changing. So there's an enormous open door for you to put down what you want to do and really make a difference and really make some change because the world is changing. We're not in we're just rolling all the 80s. We kind of rolled along the 70s and the 80s. We're kind of like not much out of the 60s, growing in the 90s, 70. You're in a place now. It's like you can light a fire, man. You can light a fire with whatever you desire. Mm-hmm. And I think you have an opportunity that not every generation has to make a difference, to invent something new. I mean, I think this whole pandemic created opportunity for people to create businesses, literally, not out of necessity. Okay, life has handed us this, so how do we make life somewhat normal? What do we do? Oh, I'm going to invent this app. I'm going to, Jeff Bezos just got really lucky that he created Amazon. Yep. Pre this thing and this thing, like, well, okay, now it's done because you can't go out, so you just get everything at Amazon. Yeah. Yep. But those opportunities are there, and I would just say to your generation, don't fool around too much. Mm-hmm. You have fun. God, life's fun. Take a walk, go out in nature, have fun, smile, make love, do whatever you do. But also just take a moment and really invest in your future, our future. And I just think it's an enormous opportunity. But you first got to know what you kind of want. Mm-hmm. What do I really want to do? And it doesn't have to be big. You don't have to be an actor. You don't have to be a politician. You don't have to invent the cure for whatever, cancer. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You know, maybe it's opening up a little restaurant. Maybe it's being a house painter. Whatever it is, pick it and go with it.
I love it. Well, that's fantastic advice, Corbin. I feel like Sean Spencer right now, just getting a fatherly talk from Henry, and so that means
that's what you got, man. That's what Henry would say. That's what Henry in the end would now say to Sean.
Yeah.
You want to do this? You want to screw around? Like, hey, be a psychic detective. Make up cards, man. Go for it. You know, just respect other people. That's all I say. That's the only thing Henry would say to Sean. Make sure you're always respectful. Yeah. Respectful of women, respectful of your neighbor, you know. And I think that is one thing with Sean. Is Sean gets away so much. He's so likable. He is respectful. He would never hurt anything, you know. Yeah. So there you got it.
Fantastic, Corbin. Well, I love to hear it. I really enjoy the inspirational advice. We got some information on the new movie. We also got some awesome, personal, inspirational advice as well. So I super appreciate it. And as someone who grew up watching Psych personally, and among the other projects you've been a part of, appreciate all your years on Psych and all this stuff you continue to do, Corbin. You're an inspiration, and I really appreciate your time here today.
It was my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. People can check out the new movie Psych 3 on Thursday, November 18th. Peacock. Corbin, I look forward to you reprising your role as Henry in the future as well.
Psych grown up. Enjoy.